I don't know if you know Uncle Jimmy, but you've had a really profound effect on my life in a lot of ways, not just my personal life, but as a storyteller, as someone who makes, in my own movies. I remember the first time, one of my first memories with movies is I made a film called Goodnight Irene. It's a short film. It all took place at IHS Indian Clinic, and they're waiting all day to see the doctor. And we had a screening at the Kelly Haney Center over there in Seminole, and it was a kind of a community premiere of the film. And there's all these curse words in the beginning of that short film. And, I was already a little worried about it because I'm showing everybody back home. And then Uncle Jimmy walks in with Queen, my Aunt Queen. And I was like, oh no. My preacher uncle's going to hear all these words and we're going to storm out of the building. And so I was nervous. And then afterwards, though, Uncle Jimmy came up to me and he was eating popcorn, had it all over his shirt, and he was really, he really loved the movie. And he came up and he gave me a big hug and said he was proud of me and that he really loved it. And I realized after that it taught me a lesson in that, my job as a person is making movies and telling stories about who we are is only to tell the truth. And if I'm lying in the movies, and people, that's what is offensive. I realized that Jimmy liked the movie because I wasn't lying in that movie. I was telling the truth, and that's how these characters would speak. And since then, I've never worried about showing movies that I make to people back home because I knew that all I had to do was be honest and tell the truth, and they would recognize that, and they would know that I wasn't lying about them. And no matter if you like my movies or not, I'm still going to tell the truth. And it was Uncle Jimmy that helped me see that when I was young. One thing that I don't know if I'm sure they've talked about, but I was late, so I'll keep talking about it. But he's one of the best storytellers I've ever met. I mean, you can't not have faith when you hear the stories that he tells. And that's why he's able to speak to people in other cultures, because he can tell stories and also because he doesn't disrespect them in their ways and their culture. I've never heard him say a bad thing about people's other native cultures. He's been with the Maori people in New Zealand and all over this world with indigenous people. And he's always respected and loved their ways. And you don't teach someone, or you don't share what you have with them unless you're respectful of them and you're respectful of their home and of their culture. And I know that Uncle Jimmy does that. And also through his storytelling, he does that. I've got to see his artwork. He's got paintings in the Philbrook, and I started as a painter myself, so I've just always had this love for Uncle Jimmy, and know that. I mean, the main thing though is that he was always there. My whole life since I was a child, when anyone was passing away, at any funeral, Uncle Jimmy was there, and it's almost like there's 10 of them because he shows up at every event. If anybody needs anything, if anybody's passing away. We just lost Uncle Marty, and it was a big loss, and Marty was in and out, and would be in our lives sometimes and be at the house, and then sometimes he didn't want to come around. And Uncle Jimmy never treated him different. I remember seeing when my grandma was passing away, we were all at the house, and towards the middle of the week, I just remember all of a sudden seeing Uncle Jimmy and Marty kneeling on the ground praying together. And Uncle Jimmy was like that anytime anybody needed to pray, anytime someone needed forgiveness or somebody needed to talk about something. He was selfless in that he would, sit down with that person and talk to them. And I always knew that. I always knew that about him. And we all love you, Uncle Jimmy. And, you've been in my movies. You're a movie star. Everybody's always like, who's that man that was singing at the beginning, that handsome man? Like, I made the movie. But we really appreciate you. And I think that the best compliment that I can give a preacher is that, I don't go to church every Sunday, and I make movies, and I'm in a whole different world. And sometimes the further you get away from home, the harder it is to, believe in God sometimes. It's hard, because you're not surrounded by it. And I think the best compliment that I can give you is the thought of you makes me believe in God. Amen. And that's because you've always had faith, you've always believed, and your love for God is a gentle love that I can respect and that I would strive to want to be myself, to have myself. So I love you, Mado, for everything. Thank you very much.